Okay, here we go. Hello from Malawi, Brittany, Janelle, Shelby, and the graduating class. Thank you for inviting me to speak for today's graduation. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, messed up. We're still in Malawi, and because of a change of travel plans, we're gonna get there by today, June 15, but we'll be arriving later, and so I would have missed the graduation. So this is cheesy, I know, but this is kind of the best we can do. So I hope you can forgive me in your hearts for not being there. I'll try and make it up to you somehow. But the RN residency program is near and dear to my heart. I've not been able to work with most of you graduates, but it has been a privilege to work with Brittany, Janelle, and Shelby, and everyone else. It's kind of incredible what the RN residency program has become, and I wish it was around when I started. They just kind of threw me into it, and there was no introduction, so I know it's been a very valuable program to Loma Linda. I want to address the preceptors and the mentors who are there. I worked with some of you on the wards and ICU. On behalf of the graduates, thank you for the time and patience you've had with the members of this class and this program. It takes a special person, a special nurse, to want to help someone get better, and you should be commended for what you've done. And to the graduates, congratulations to all of you. I've been out of nursing for 14 years, but I can still remember what it's like to be in your shoes. There may not be as much pomp and circumstance here as your nursing school graduation, but make no mistake, this is a very large milestone for you in your professional journey. So I'm sure at some point in your lives, like a lot of us in healthcare, you all decided you wanted to help people. It could have been when you were cared for by a great nurse, or when you were taking care of your first sick child. And then your professional journey began when you took your first chemistry or biology class, and then continued when you were pinned and when you graduated as nurses. And now you are on the verge of being on your own, either having your own 4 list on acute care, your own vented patient on 5800 step down, or recovering your own cardiac post-op patient, having your own septic patient on 5700, or the 24-weeker from the nursery, or even the newly diagnosed leukemic that's getting sick fast. It's exciting, and I'm sure a lot of you are very excited, but it can also be very scary, I imagine. So my job today is to tell you what you already know, that this is just the beginning for you. To quote a passage in the Bible, God says in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the thoughts and plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope in the future." If you are at all worried about the near future or how you will do on your own, I'm going to remind you today about how far you've come, remind you about the difference you make every day, and remind you that you are on a journey that you will be constantly growing and learning. So, how far you've come. You can raise your hands if you want. I know I'm not there, but how many of you feel unsure at times? I'm sure there are some of you who have all the confidence in the world and are ready to conquer it. I do have a burden to tell those of you who are not sure of yourselves that it's okay. If you do feel like a rookie or a novice still, let me remind you of how far you've come. Do you remember when you didn't know how to take a manual blood pressure? I remembered when I learned how to take a pulse and respirations at the same time. I couldn't believe how sneaky we were at counting someone's respirations while we were taking their pulse. So whenever I went to the doctor or had a nurse take my vitals, I held my breath so they couldn't count my respirations just to mess with them. And I know you all remember your nursing school days. It wasn't that long ago. Realizing that you were on the road to being a nurse, I'm sure it kind of hit you when you couldn't stop talking to your classmates about excrement over lunch and your experience with them. Or maybe that was just me. Or stressing over things like getting tested on my bed making capabilities. Do they still teach how to make mitered corners in nursing school? I don't remember. But I can remember as a new nursing student, my day would be ruined before my clinical rotations because I'd be so stressed out going in the night before to gather information on my patient, to introduce myself, and then the day of taking care of my patient. giving the medications myself and drawing them up, I was literally scared that I was going to kill somebody. I'm sure you all have your favorite memories of your first clinical rotation. My favorite memory happened when I was taking care of a 90-year-old woman with dementia. I think her name was Agnes. And I walked into the room trying to be a bright spot in her day and I asked her, "Is there anything I can get you today?" She was still with it enough to say, "Yes, you can get the hell out of my room." Um, and I'm sure you have other experiences that you remember from your nursing school days. But no matter how small you may feel now, if you do, just think back to how far you've come. Some of you has worked as medical billers or unit secretaries, tutors, CNAs, anything. And now that you've gone from uniformed nursing students trying not to get in the way of the pediatric nurses, now you will be pediatric nurses that the students will look up to. So you've come a long way. Don't don't forget that, and especially remember it when you are feeling overwhelmed or discouraged. Now, I will remind you how you make a difference. We started in this business to make a difference, but sometimes we need reminders of this job. I'm going to read some words from parents about residents in this RN residency program. "Thank you so much. You are an angel. You really helped myself and my daughter get through this. You comfort us with such compassion. Bless you. Thank you for all the good care you provided for my daughter. We so appreciate your kindness and willingness to make our stay there as comfortable as possible. We were blessed to have such a wonderful nurse." Another one said, "Our nurse made our stay very comfortable. I am a mom of a special need baby who has not slept in 9 months. But the 2 days she took care of my baby, I slept through with no disturbance at all. I would really like to thank her for all her help. May God bless you and your family." Another one, "I would really like to thank you for taking care of my son the way you did. I felt really comfortable with you watching him. You were right on top of everything. I really believe people like you are the ones that make the difference. Thanks and God bless." And finally, this last one. "I'll never forget how compassionate, how professional, and how dedicated nurses have been to my wife and I when we needed them most. When our youngest daughter was diagnosed with meningitis when she was just 3 months old, one of the scariest moments of my life, it was the nurses who walked us through what was happening and made sure that my daughter was okay." That last father who spoke was actually President Obama, who also said about nurses, "You are the bedrock of the medical profession." For me, going through medicine after having worked as a nurse personally, it cemented what I had been told. Doctors cannot do anything without nurses. You turn ideas into reality. I saw a sign in a PICU bathroom that is a truth. Constant attention by a good nurse may be as important as a major operation by a surgeon. And you can see examples of that every day, especially in the ICUs where the ECMO nurses are constantly managing things. So never forget, whatever unit you're working on now, or whatever unit you're going to be working eventually, never forget, even when the exciting has become mundane for you or routine for you, you can change a child's life forever. So you do make a difference. And it's a journey. We've talked about how far you've come and the difference you can make in the lives of your patients. Now let's talk about continuing the journey you're going to be on. At each step of my education, I found that the more you learn, the more you realize how much more there is to know. And I've experienced how inadequate that can make you feel. It is intimidating at times when you're faced with situations that you don't know or you don't think you're well prepared enough to handle. And that's why it's a journey, because you will never stop learning and growing and getting better. At each step in my career, I've felt I've had so much to learn, and I've felt intimidated and inadequate at times, but the biggest thing is I've tried to honor God with my efforts, and He has blessed me and has put me in positions to bless others. One story that has inspired me is the one telling of 300 soldiers fighting against an impossible military force whose purpose was to wipe them off the face of the earth. This is not the movie about the 300 Spartans from a few years ago. I'm talking about a story in the Bible about ancient Israel and a man called Gideon. He was the weakest member of the weakest tribe in Israel, but God chose him to lead an army against the Midianites, whose force was described as one that lay along the valley like locusts for multitude. Their camels were without number, as a sand which is upon the seashore for multitude. So, a lot of them. For those who don't know the story, um, Gideon started out with an army of 32,000 men, but 22,000 men left because they were so scared. And then another 9,000 plus left the battle, leaving him with only 300 soldiers. And it was against at least a force numbering 120,000. Impossible odds, but they won by surrounding the army at night with pitchers, torches, and swords, making them think that they were surrounded, and the opposing army ended up fighting and killing each other. A writer talked about Gideon like this: the leader whom God chose to overthrow the Midianites occupied no prominent position in Israel. He was not a ruler, a priest, or a Levite. He thought himself the least in his father's house, but God saw in him a man of courage and integrity. He was distrustful of himself and willing to follow sorry, and willing to follow the guidance of the Lord. God does not always choose for his work men or women of the greatest talents, but he selects those whom he can best use. Before honor is humility. That's found in Proverbs 15:33. The Lord can work most effectually through those who are most sensible of their own insufficiency and who will rely upon him as their leader and source of strength. He will make them strong by uniting their weakness to his might, and wise by connecting their ignorance with his wisdom. He is just as willing to work with the efforts of his people now and to accomplish great things through weak instrumentalities. All heaven awaits upon our demand, upon its wisdom and strength. God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, and that's in Ephesians 3:20. I am telling you this because it was only in my dreams that I thought I would have had the journey that I've had so far. Of all the things that have happened to me, from nursing school to medical school to residency, chief residency, and now a career in pediatric critical care, I have no shame in telling you that I was not smart enough or good enough to do any of those things on my own. Those are doors that God opened in front of me and helped me to walk through them. The doors are open for you now as you begin or continue your nursing career. Your journey may lead you to become an administrator, an educator, or a charge nurse. Some of you may further your education through teaching, a master's or doctorate degree, or medical school. Some of you will remain on the floor and continue to make profound impacts on the daily lives of patients and families on the units, and inspiring the next generation of nurses. So remember that this is only the beginning. Don't forget how far you've already come, how much of a difference you make, and that you are going to be constantly growing and learning on this journey. And whatever path your journey leads, each of you will touch lives and heal patients. And you know you already have in the short time you've been here. So congratulations on this step in your journey. May God bless you. And again, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there, but thinking about you here in Malawi, and I'll see you around the hospital. But God bless you. Bye.